to the first episode of Charcast, where we will be exploring games and geek culture throughout the hills and hollows of West Virginia. My name is Travis Reynolds. I'm the director and one of the co-founders of CharCon, which is the West Virginia Gaming Convention. I also work for Queen Games.
I'm Dave Gilligan. I'm the event coordinator at CharCon, and I've been working with CharCon for 13 years now, and looking forward to 13 more years, right?
I'm Doug Dameron. I've been attending CharCon since 2008. I've been on the staff for about 4 or 5 years now, and I run the YouTube channel Shut Up Doug.
Shut up. So, let's talk real quickly about what we plan to do with this show. We want to cover not just the conventions, which there are quite a few conventions in West Virginia these days. We've got CharCon, and of course there's ShakaCon, SabassaCon, there's West Virginia PopCon, there's Vandalia. There's quite a few conventions, so we want to briefly touch on those. And before I forget, I want to tell you to not forget that TriCon, which is West Virginia's Comic-Con, is this weekend, Saturday, June 2nd at Big Sandy Superstore Arena in Huntington, West Virginia. So if you're in Huntington or looking for something to do, or if you're into comics, make sure you get down to that. So we're going to try to cover conventions on just geek topics, games, pretty much anything we can touch on, right?
Sounds good.
So normally we will almost always have CharCon updates on here, and that's a topic of its own that we're going to go into. And we will also try to have a CharCon staff member. We might bring in our role-playing coordinator, or we might bring in our guy that handles panels or cosplay, just so they can talk about that aspect of the show, so that those of you that are into that particular aspect can get some information. And we'll probably try and put out some opportunities for you to ask them questions ahead of time.
So one of the things that we're going to touch on every episode is what's going on with CharCon. So some CharCon news. Just want to let you know, right now pre-registration is open. The hotel block is also open. So get out there, sign up, get online. You'll be able to register not only for the convention, but you also be able to start signing up for events as they appear in the schedule. So be looking for that.
This year is our second year at the Clay Center. For those of you that haven't been, it's a very nice venue in downtown Charleston. A lot of big-name musicians and artists will be there, and it's not your typical convention center hall, and I think that adds some of the charm of it. It's a lot more comfortable. It's very modern. The space is just right in my opinion. The main space is our vendor area, and there's a mezzanine where we play games on the various floors above that. So, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. If you've not been to the Clay Center, why not make your first trip to us?
Yeah, I agree with all that. We've been to a lot of conventions, from Gen Con to Origins to PAX Unplugged. I say it, you guys agree, classiest venue I've ever been to a convention.
Absolutely.
You can't see any rafters on the ceiling.
Right.
It's not a hotel conference room.
No bare concrete.
When you're in some of the conventions, you're in a box for 8, 10, 12 hours. Some of those cons seem like they last forever. But that main space at CharCon, you're able to see out over the city. You get natural light coming in, which at a convention is a little unusual.
Right, they're like 30 or 40 foot tall glass. It's an entire glass wall. To give you an idea, they hold proms here every year.
It's classy. Definitely
Absolutely.
classy.
Great venue, great people.
So if you missed it, it's too late this year, but we did a Kickstarter for the first time, and it was a very big success. We were very happy with it. We've got a lot of attendees that are going to have VIP access. All of the attendees got their registration cheaper than what they will be able to get it even during pre-registration and definitely on site. Plus, they all got some swag that goes along with their registration. We did some neat stuff. Some people got hotel rooms included. One group took advantage of our group backer, which was 10 badges. You get 10 badges and a table where you can promote your group. We had all kinds of neat stuff on there. It was successful, like I said, and we plan to keep doing it. So keep an eye out for it for next year.
Kickstarter helped fund this podcast, some of the material that we have.
Sure, yeah.
I think it's been the most pre-registration interest that I've seen since I've been on board with Charcon. Maybe not in terms of actual numbers, but in terms of talk.
Yeah, I would agree. We usually do somewhere in the 130 range, maybe a little less total. And I think we had 70 to 80 badges registration total through the Kickstarter, so that's really good.
Yeah.
We're very happy.
All right, for those of you that do not know, we are a convention that is trying to grow, and part of that is social media. We have just about everything that you can imagine. We have Facebook, which is the most frequently updated thing that we have, and it's probably the best place to get the most up-to-date information. This will be the first, maybe the second video on our YouTube channel, so follow us there. We have an active Instagram and Twitter, and we also have a Snapchat. So check us out there.
Do we have a Tinder?
I do.
If we had a Tinder, we would swipe right on all of you.
That's right. Yeah. So one final thing about Charcon is Charcon wouldn't be what it is without our attendees and all the people who run events, RPGs, board games, card games, LARPs, you name it, we got it. So event submission is open. Just go to the site, and if there's something that you're interested in running, please do feel free to submit that, and we'll be happy to take a look at it and approve it.
Panels, definitely. Whether they're discussions or if it's like a demonstration where you're going to teach people how to do stuff like cosplay oriented or maybe 3D printing, anything that's related to the hobby and things that you like to do in the hobby, we'd love to host it.
So a segment that we're planning on doing every week is what have we played recently that we've liked or what has caught our interest. So we've all picked a game that we're going to talk about this week. Briefly, I'm going to go into a full review of that. Mine is a game called Keeper. It is in a key line along with Keyflower, Key to the City, London, Key Harvest.
Yep.
It has a similar feel to those, not necessarily the same mechanics. I think I like it more than Keyflower. Basically, it is a worker placement game, and you have a set number of options for every player. And those options are placed on these boards that you fold up like origami and end up having different options showing. But the main need of the game is when I take my action, if I'm taking a brown action, I get rewarded for using a brown meeple by getting to do it again. Although I don't necessarily have to use a brown one. And then going clockwise around the table, the first player to choose so gets to copy my action. And they're trying to match my meeple for a bonus, not the space that I've chosen. So if I used a brown person on a blue space, they're trying to match the brown person. So if they do that, then there's an additional bonus. So you can do an action up to 3 times if 2 people have gone there and they match the space. And that's basically it. It's almost like a worker placement with the warrior own follow mechanic. Other than that, there's a limited number of meeples that are in the game, and they get distributed not so evenly among the boards. And after every turn, or at the midpoint of every turn, you end up claiming one of these boards, and you start your next turn with the meeples that were on the board that you claimed. And the final interesting part is, if you're the first person to go out and you claim a board, then while other people are still trying to go out, you get to lay down the meeples that were previously placed on the board that you've taken and do those actions again, along with the bonus times. So if there are 2 people that match the color of the space, you claim that board and you lay them down, you get to do that action 3 times. So it's a game where, strangely enough, you might not want to have the most workers because you can do a lot of free actions still. And that keeps going until the last player claims a board, until the last player runs out. And it's just 4 seasons of that. Otherwise, The actions are pretty standard. Turn stuff into other stuff. Feature people, or not feature people. You want to have stuff to show off at the fair.
How long did it take to play?
It took a while to figure out rules. I've played it 3 times now. Under 90 minutes of actual gameplay every time.
And how long were the rules explanations?
The first time was an hour. The second time was 20 minutes. The third time was one person who played before besides me and one new person, and it took about 20 minutes as well. So 20 minutes seems regular. I just hadn't figured out.
So it has a learning curve.
It has a learning curve. I think they got it once I got it. I was poorly prepared when I got it the first time.
Right.
So,
Gotcha.
and there was drinking.
So one of the games I played recently that I quite enjoyed is a game called Altiplano by Rainer Stockhausen, and it is it's a bag builder is essentially what the mechanism it uses. So in the game, what you're doing is you're getting various resources. You're of course turning those resources. It's a typical Euro. So it's resource management. You're taking resources, you're turning them into other resources. You're storing some of those resources. There's a lot of ways to get points, but the main mechanism, as I mentioned, is bag building. So you start out the game with a certain number of chits, and the chits have various things on, like food or llamas or wool or stone, what have you, the various resources. And you're going to put those into a bag, and you're going to draw out so many each turn, and those are going to be what you use to do your actions. So instead of using cards like you would in a deck builder, say in Dominion or Ascension or something like that, you're drawing the chits out of the bag. And when you use those chits to take actions, you're going to get more chits that are then going to be in a discard pile, that once your bag runs out of chits, you're going to put them all back in and you're going to redraw. So there's quite a lot going on in the game. It's pretty free form, almost, I guess you could call it almost a sandbox game, because there's so many different ways to go. The one saving grace that I felt was at the beginning of the game, we each got a special power that kind of gave you a direction to go. So in the game that we played, my special power was I was very good at getting llamas and turning the llamas into food, or getting wool and then making blankets. And as you move up the chain, obviously you get more points for the more expensive goods. So it gave me a direction to go. Without that, I might have been a little lost in the game. But it was very intuitive, I think. Once we got the rules down, it was very intuitive of where you went and what actions you could take and what things you used to do those. I mean, you use stone to build a house. You use a wood and stone to build a road, things like that. So it was well designed, made a lot of sense, worked real well. I quite enjoyed it. So that's Altiplano. Fantastic game, I think.
Okay. All right. So my game is Heaven and Ale. Heaven and Ale is from Kiesling and Schmidt. This game has gotten a lot of attention lately, and I think it really deserves it. It's a great game about monks brewing beer. Who doesn't like that, right? But the things I really liked about the game are the core mechanic is moving your monk along this track, and you can either slow your roll and lag behind and try and pick up lots of things, or you also have the choice to go very far ahead to get that key component that you need, but you're bypassing a lot of other opportunities. I like games that let you make those choices, because you can make a calculated choice to jump ahead and get what you need, or try and really benefit from everyone else doing that, and you're getting the opportunity to pick up everything that they left behind. So I think games that do that I really like. I also really enjoyed the land part of that, where you pull the resources back and you get to choose to either put it on the side that's going to generate resources for you, or the side that's going to generate money for you. And you had to really choose. There was it's very important how you place them, because that's how you get to kick off bonuses and close out certain certain pieces on the side that are going to do more for you in the end. There's a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of levers in this game. So I really enjoyed that. The other thing I really enjoyed, some games will have joint goals, and they'll have like 2 or 3 tiles, and it's like the first person to do this gets this, or the first person to complete these. In this game, there's 12 maybe?
Probably 12 or 14 different, different goals. Yeah, the one thing you can say about this game, too, it's the one game that we've talked about that all 3 of us have actually played.
Yeah,
So
right. We've all played.
More than once.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're joint goals. There's, like we said, 12 or 14 of them. And there's just all sorts of different stuff. And there's not only the first person, but the second person can also claim a decreased value bonus from those. So there's a lot going on, but it is a very good game. If you haven't played it, check it out. And one of the reasons it's getting so much attention lately is that it was nominated by the Spiel committee for the Kenner Spiel Award, which is the advanced game or the gamer's game award that goes with the Spiel des Jahres. It was nominated along with 2 other games, and those games are Ganz Schön Clever. Did I get that right?
Ganz Schön Clever, yeah.
And from Wolfgang Warsch and Die Quacksalber Quedlinburg.
D,
right?
D Quacksalber. Yeah.
What Dave said. Also by Wolfgang Warsch, who has 2 games nominated for Kennerspiel, which is very impressive.
Is it a first?
I don't think it's a first. It may be a first that he has 3 games in total.
Yeah.
Because he has a game also nominated for the SDJ.
Right.
Okay, that's pretty impressive.
Right. Not only that, but of course we said Heaven and Ale was from Michael Keesley. He has a game nominated for the SDJ as well. So 5 of the 6 games nominated are from 2 designers. That's impressive. I have played 2 of the 3 Kennerspiel nominees. We all played the Clever game at our regular game night. It's a dice game, but it's very clever, right? I mean, you have to pick and choose which dice you're going to use. It's like Yahtzee on steroids. I mean, it's very good.
Well, the thing I liked about it is on my turn, I would roll the dice, and I would make some decisions about which dice I would use and how I was going to use them. But at the same time, some of the dice that I leave over, you could use. So in some cases, I might want to use a particular die, even though it might not benefit me as much, to keep it out of your guys' hands.
Right.
So, it was an interesting game. It's a roll and write, which is a pretty hot genre right now. You're rolling dice and you're marking stuff off.
Roll through the ages.
Roll through the ages, yeah. It could be a roll and write. Steamrollers that's coming out as a roll and write. So there's a whole slew of them that are really hitting the market. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
So out of those 3, like I said, I've played 2, so it's hard for me to vote on the third one. But what do you think? What's your guess on?
Well, for me, on the Kennerspiel, it's Heaven and Ale is my clear winner. I can't, and that's a little bit biased because I haven't played the Quacksalber from Wexelberg, or I can't even remember.
We'll just Quedlinburg.
But keep it in mind this is a German award, so we're not always going to have access to every game.
That's right.
That they choose. It's not designed for us.
Right. They don't have to be nominated. They don't have to be out in the U.S. or Canada or anywhere else. They have to be out in Germany.
Right.
What about you, Doug? What do you think?
I've only played Heaven and Ale. I think it's deserving of a win. It's better than some games that have won the past. But I missed game night and didn't get to play the other one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Clever game, the dice game. I think Heaven and Ale maybe is a little too heavy. Even though it's nominated, I think it's a little heavier than what they might normally pick for this category. So I'm going to go with the dice game.
I'm not worried about it being so heavy. That's why there's 2 categories.
Yeah, and I to be honest, I think for Kennerspiel, I thought that the Ganz Schön Clever was a little bit on the light side.
Well, I don't think they look at this, but I think that Heaven and Ale is the heaviest weight game. If you look at the BGG weight ratings, the heaviest weight game that's ever been done. So I think
I could see that.
I think it's heavy. But who knows? Maybe it's going to fit right in. So the main award that goes with those is the Spiel Jahres, and that's the award for the German Family Game of the Year. So we're talking about a different category of games here. It's games that you play with your family, with your children, with your mother, sit down at the family table and play. So there are 3 games nominated here as well. One of them is The Mind. That's the other game by Wolfgang Wurst. It's in 3 nominated. Also, The Mind is a card game. We'll talk briefly about that. Then we have Azul, which is an abstract game, and that's by Michael Kiesling. And then we have Luxor by Rudiger Dorn. So The Mind, Dave and I played the other day. Have you played Doug?
I didn't get to play that one. I played the other two.
So we played The Mind. Right? We didn't have a copy. We took a copy of the game and used the cards and kind of loosely interpreted some of the cards we were missing. But it was enough to get an experience. It's definitely a neat, fun, memorable experience. I had fun doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. It was, it's definitely interesting. I mean, basically what you're doing is, you're trying to play cards in order from 1 to 100, but you can't talk to anybody else at the table.
Right.
So,
everybody starts on round 1, you get 1 card, round 2, and so on. With 4 players, you go to 8 cards, and you have to play all of them in numeric order, or else you lose a life and you only have a limited number of lives.
Right. And so if the 3 of us were playing, it's not like Doug plays, Travis plays, I play.
Right. Doug may play 4 in a row.
Yeah,
right.
Doug may have the 1, the 3, the 7, and the 10, and he may just play them all out, and we're sitting there waiting, but there's a lot of, you just they call it getting in sync with your other players and kind of understand, because if I have the 22 and the 10's been played, I'm not immediately going to play the 22. So
right.
I figure the more you play with people, you probably get a little better at the game.
Well, like I said, I think the game is neat and it offers a lot of memorable moments, which is something that's good in gaming. I think it's a good game.
Yeah.
The next one is Azul. Azul is a great abstract game. Have you played Azul?
I played it a number of times, yeah.
Why don't you tell us what you think about it?
Well, to begin with my family, abstract games are just hot. They love Sagrada and King Chocolate. Azul's up there with the best of them, according to my family. It feels like, maybe not everyone's played Sagrada, but feels like Sagrada without the number consideration. You do have a drafting element, although you're drafting from a number of pools. I think it's a solid game. I've unfortunately never played the advanced variant where you can make your own pattern. Is that what's going on the back side of the board?
Well, on the front side, yeah, there's specific places that each of the 5 tiles goes. But in the advanced variant, yeah, you have some freedom as to where you put them, but you still have to follow the rules that only one color can be in a column or a row.
The pattern takes the same shape, but the colors can be swapped out, essentially, is the gist that I got. With only one color per row.
Right.
I don't know. I really like it. Maybe not.
It's good. I mean, the other mechanics. We're just talking about the placement, but the collection of tiles and managing how many tiles you collect over beyond what you actually want to collect that can hurt you. It's a neat game. I like Azul too. Also, it's very good for an abstract.
It's drafting, push your luck. I do like the breaking thing. A lot of games you would want to take a lot of stuff, but this punishes you for it.
Yeah, it can be a mean game too, because you can really stick it to somebody and make them take a bunch of tiles that they don't necessarily want to take, and they are going to lose a lot of points in some cases. So it can be tough.
And the components are great if you're concerned about that at all. The components maybe make it.
Oh, the components are
very nice.
Top notch, absolutely.
So the third game nominated is Luxor. I'm obviously partial to that. It's from Queen Games, and that's what I work for. But we've played Luxor a number of times. I'll let you guys talk about it.
So in Luxor, you are archaeologists and you're exploring a pyramid. And the main mechanism that really, I think, makes the game is the card play. Because in the game, you're going to have 5 cards that are going to be what you use to move your adventures on the board. But rather than having a choice of any one of the cards that you want to play, you can, once you get your hand set, you can only play the left card or the right card. You play it, you do your move, and then when you draw up a new card, it goes in the center. So you're always having at least 2 choices, but depending on which one you take is, you're going to get the next card in line. So you might line up a certain combination of cards that will allow you to move strategically on the board. So I think the game is a good deal of fun. I think it's right where it needs to be for the Spiel des Jahres. The right weight, the right complexity, but still plenty of decisions for gamers to make. You can play that game at multiple levels. So I think it's got a good shot.
Right. It's actually a game that I might have prejudged. It has a track almost like a roller move, but it's not at all like that. It's visually looked like that to me. I thought maybe you played a card and you move, which you do, but it's not that simple. And it's the kind of thing that you can't really get unless you play. It's almost like the difference between some worker placement. The keeping the cards in order, playing one end or the other, it forces you to have to think several turns ahead with your hand. Up to 5 turns ahead or more, considering how many cards you had and what order you want to play them in. And I think that actually ends up making it something special that I would play again. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a tough group of nominees. The Mind is neat. And, like I said, offers great experience. Azul is a very, very good abstract. And I think Luxor fits right in the traditional mold of what the Spiel des Jahres Award is about, which I think is probably its strength. Azul might be a little too complicated for the Spiel des Jahres weight and the nastiness level that you mentioned, where you can really get somebody by having them take the tiles they don't want. That to me may not fit really well with family weight. And also the Mind. I saw on Twitter the other day someone mentioned that they had played the Mind 200 times and they had lost their 200th. But earlier in the day they had won their 10th time. So that's 10 times out of 200, which
that's 5% win rate.
That's a lot of games to play to only win. And I don't know how well families will take to playing a game that they almost never win. But again, tough competition. Of course, I'm pulling for Luxor, but great set of games for both the Spiel des Jahres and the Kenner Spiel. Hopefully we'll have most, if not all of them, available to play at Charcast.
Yep.
So our first guest on this first episode of Charcast is going to be Jason Matthews. Jason is a prolific game designer. He designed Twilight Struggle, which was the #1 game on Board Game Geek for over 7 years. He also designed Founding Fathers, Sola Fide, 1960 Making of the President, and many other games. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be here.
Glad to have you. How's the weather in your part of the country?
Crappy. It's been crappy for like a month and a half, honestly.
I hear you. It's not much different here because it's not much different here. It's a mountain between the two, right?
Right, exactly.
So I think you know Dave and Doug, right?
I do.
Okay, so we're just going to go right into some questions that we have for you. So I'm going to start off with a slow pitch for you. What's a game that you've played recently that you really liked?
The game I'm most enthused about is Rebellion. I think that is a fantastic design.
Okay, Star Wars Rebellion. Gotcha. And counter that, what's a game you played really recently that you really didn't like?
So this is a little bit heresy because it's well regarded by a lot of folks, but I didn't much care for Colonial Twilight.
Which game?
Colonial Twilight. It's a coin series game about the French-Algerian War.
Right behind me. I've not tried it yet.
Maybe he's just going to sell it now.
Right.
Yeah, don't punch it. No, there are a lot of great things about the game. I just don't. I didn't think it did a great job of capturing the issues with counterinsurgency.
So you said it's part of the coin series. So I mean, and you're obviously familiar with those, but it just didn't capture the same feel as some of the other games in the system. You think?
I think that, and I think there are some issues with the coin system in general about how open information is and how that doesn't really reflect the nature of counterinsurgency, because the hard part about counterinsurgency is finding your opponent. Once you know where the rebels are, applying force is really not the difficult question. In my yeah.
You can see where the pieces are, but they're flipped or unflipped for whether or not they're hidden or not. They're never truly hidden.
Right.
And Dave, this is
So
the
no-
only two-player game in the series.
Right. That's also true.
Gotcha. All right, Doug.
I was curious, how involved were you with Imperial Struggle, and do you have any news on it?
So, Imperial Struggle has had like a tortured design process. Ananda and I started it not very long after, well, let's say probably 3 or so years after Twilight Struggle came out. And then Ananda sort of parlayed Twilight Struggle into a successful career in computer game design. And at the time, he was working for a company that had very draconian intellectual property rules about all their employees. So basically, every idea that came out of Ananda's head belonged to them. And so as a result, we couldn't do any work for quite some time. And fast forward, so there were probably like 5 years of blackout where he couldn't do anything. He went to work for a new company out in California, and he restarted the process of design. And when he restarted the process, he did a lot of the more recent iteration of the design by himself, but the general structure of it is still the stuff that we came up with initially. And right now we're working on refinements. Needless to say, there's a lot of pressure for this game to be very good, and so I really am not going to let it out the door until I'm totally satisfied.
Having played, I think, every one of your other games, can you say it's close to anything else? Like particularly close to anything else?
It's not really. It's very novel because we're trying to stimulate so many wars and so much time and not have it take, and not be an abstraction. It's not like a Euro, but we also don't want it to take 100 years. We don't want it to play like a real-time game. So the emphasis is very different because the nature of the French conflict, the English-French conflict, is war, peace, war, peace, war, peace. And so you have to have a game that is meaningful and addresses both of those issues. So the countries have to be making progress during peacetime, and they have to have a different sort of progress during wartime. And that's really the weird element of this design.
Okay. So
I think it'll be different. I think people will like it when they try it. It'll be odd.
looking forward to it. So, outside of Imperial Struggle, are there any new game designs you have coming out that you could tell us about, or anything that you're kicking around lately?
Yeah, I've always got a lot more ideas than I have willpower to actually work. But I am working with Queen Games on a design I'm excited about that will be kind of a light military CDG um, in the genre of people, it'll be that level of complexity. But since it will be for Queen games, it'll be multiplayer first of all, and it'll use the battle tower as both the mechanism for triggering events and also for combat, as it plays in a number of those Queen games. The subject matter of the game and another interesting dynamic of it is that it will be sort of a partnership game. Queen was originally interested in a game about the Civil War, the American Civil War, that is, but they wanted it to be multiplayer. From my vantage point, the American Civil War is mostly a binary kind of conflict. But while the American Civil War was going on, at the same time, the French invaded Mexico, and they invaded Mexico because the American Civil War was going on and the United States was distracted, so they couldn't really react the way they wanted. So there were two wars going on the continent at the same time, the Republican Mexicans versus the French and the North and the South. And the two things interacted in really interesting ways historically. And so that's what the game is about. So in this game, the Union will be allied with the Mexican Republican forces and the Confederates with Maximilian and the French invaders.
That's interesting. Look forward to that.
You know, I'm really excited about it.
Well, good. You text me about it a lot every other day, so I assume that's excitement.
I missed the first round of sales for Turn Zero, and I'm just curious, is going to be a reprint of that? What's a guy got to do to get a fresh copy of that?
Gosh, well, I see you can have mine, but I'll mention that to DMT because you're not the first person to ask me about it, and I don't know how expensive it really was for them to print, but I'm sure that there are other fans who would be interested. You know, a lot of people still are being introduced to the game all the time, so it might be a good thing for them to consider at least putting on the P500 list to see what kind of demand is there.
Is it something they've considered putting in the box with future editions?
I haven't heard them say that, and do that would increase the cost. I don't know how to feel about that.
So, in addition to asking about new games, are there any new designers that you've been watching lately, or that caught your eye? Anything out there that any new designers on the scene that have had any influence?
Well, gosh, it's so hard to keep up. When I entered the hobby, I feel like I would walk into a game store and I would know all the games myself. I had played most of them and owned a bunch of them. These days, I was just in the store the other day to pick up Dragon Castle or whatever, the new cool miniatures game with the kind of domino tile is anyway. And I don't recognize, not only do I not recognize the designers' names, I don't recognize the publishers' names. So it's so much more diverse, and with so many new designers doing excellent work, it's a lot harder for me to say, well, this is my favorite guy, and this is who I'm always. Here's whose designs I'm looking for. Back in the day, I still am kind of looking forward to Martin Wallace's game. I think that'll be interesting. His takes on military games are good. I always loved Michael Jackson in the Eurospace, but there are a billion Euro designers at this stage, so it's a different hobby for me.
Yes, it's exciting to have all those games, and it's also kind of imposing. There's just so much.
And it becomes so much harder to filter what do you really need to acquire because buying 1,000 games a year is just not realistic, I think, for most people. So
It's hard for those of us that just collect games and don't ever actually play them.
But that's also why, why reviewers and vlogs and the rest of it have become so much more important, because you've got the Board Game Geek ratings, and that's helpful up to a point, but it doesn't help you in the very near term where, there aren't really that many ratings and people have not gotten to it. And unlike years past where you might expect a major reviewer to cover all of the important games, that's hard for them to do anymore. So, you have to have a bunch of sources all over the internet to kind of cover the hobby these days.
So my next question is, I know you're into comics. What other hobby might you be into, or hobbies into, that might surprise people? Keep it family weight here.
Yeah, I mean, I like all of the nerd hobbies, honestly. So comics and Star Wars and the rest of it. Things that would be surprising to people. I kind of like bonsai tools. I did that for a little while. That's weird. I studied in Japan also, my junior.
I hear you're really into girls volleyball.
That's an avocation, not a hobby. Everyone, once your daughter is in girls volleyball, everybody is in girls volleyball. That was
K-pop either.
Yes, that's true. I am not a Korea boo. However, my daughter
Is she done now?
Yeah, she's doing beats though this summer, so no, it never ends, as you know.
All right, so our final question has to do with, can you tell us what the best game convention you've ever been to in West Virginia is?
Charcon. It's the best convention that's not Essen during that time period.
The funny thing is, we've moved it now to July, so that almost isn't applicable anymore. We'll still use it. But. So, are there any stories you'd like to share from Charcon, or maybe tell our viewers why they should come?
Yeah, I mean, you see in cartoons when you're a little boy, or at least you did when you were a little boy of my age, you saw people drinking alcohol out of jugs with X on them, and it was supposed to be moonshine, and it seemed like it was an absurdity, like quicksand. But no, it actually happens in West Virginia, and the Charcon organizers are dispensing it. So everyone needs to try it.
I can neither confirm or deny those things. All right. Well, I think the biggest thing our guests would probably like to know is, are you going to come back at some point?
I would love to come back. Absolutely. It's fun. It's a really fun regional convention, and the people are very welcoming, and I had a great time, honestly.
We'll see what we can do to get you back. All right, guys, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Appreciate it.
Jason, buddy, thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
My pleasure, gentlemen. You have a good evening. All right, bye-bye.
Another regular segment that we're going to have on Charcast is going to be called What's in Shrink? And basically, it's going to be about games that we still have that are still in shrink, which is shameful on our behalf. We pick up a lot of games. Sometimes it's at game conventions. Sometimes we buy them. And it's definitely not because they're not good games, because as you will see, some of these are great games. But inevitably, we get one, and one of our friends gets one, and we play that one, and then the one copy stays in shrink. That seems to happen a lot. I'm sure it happens to you guys sometimes. So you will see that some of the games that we have that are in shrink are great games, and we want to show them to you here on this show so that you can plan to come to Charcon and take them out of shrink and give them playing, because games are for playing, not for sitting around. So the game that we're going to cover on our first episode here is the Gallerist from Vital Lacerda. It's from Eagle Griffin Games, which is a big, long-time supporter. I think they've been supporting Charcon longer than any other company. The Gallerist, this is my copy. It's sort of in shrink. It's coming off. I have played. I think Dave's played also. Doug, I played Doug's copy, so Doug's going to briefly tell us about the Gallerist.
The Gallerist is a heavy economic game about buying and selling art. In it, you move yourself around to various spaces where you can gain achievements, increase your own fame, or invest in artists, buy a young, starving artist's work, improve their fame, get a contract for their type of art, and sell it. It's one of these games where you're trying to manage multiple currencies, including your fame, their fame, cash, tickets, and people in and out of your galleries. It's a lot like Vital Lacerda's other games in that there's a lot to manage. I think it's right in the middle of his other games regarding weight. It is a very heavy game, as are most of his games.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, it is definitely, I've played it one time. It's a heavy game. I've played, of his games, I've played, Kanban is the other game of his that I played. And that one's about, running basically an automobile factory, you know. So, of the two games, I think I like Kanban better. But both of them have in common that they are quite heavy. They have a lot of mechanisms. They get a lot going on. Now you mentioned modern art. That's a classic game from Reiner Knizia. And to be honest, if I had to play a game about art, it'd probably be modern art. This is an investment in time. You really got to dedicate yourself, to playing this game, I think. But it's a good game. But
I think you pick a game like this for mechanics, though, and not theme, and you really have to like heavy games. I will say, unlike some other games, I feel like Lisboa is bad at this. This game is good about matching the theme to what you're doing. It may be tedious to some people. There are a lot of steps, but it makes sense that you are advertising this artist. You are taking contracts to sell art that you bought cheaper. That all works together. It also makes sense that the game that you like more, and a game that is a more efficient game, is Kanban, a game about Six Sigma, which in the engineering world is the Japanese art of industrial efficiency. And so the game about efficiency is the efficient game.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's a good game. Just not necessarily my cup of tea, but
So the Gallerist, they didn't care for it. I did like it. Heavyweight, Euro style, worker placement, point salad, lots of scoring. Come play it at Charcon. I would advise that one of your crew read the rules first. Or if Doug's around and not busy, maybe he can teach you. So that's the Gallerist. And that's the end of our first episode of Charcast. We're looking forward to doing these on a regular basis. We hope to release one every other Monday when we're close to Charcon or perhaps bonus round. We may release them more frequently. We'll have more content to cover. But throughout the year, we hope to release them every other Monday. Please, these first several episodes, in the comments, tell us what you liked, what you didn't, what you'd like to see, things you'd like us to see cover or add, anything you'd like us to consider, or anything you think will make this show better, because we want it to be for you. So let us know. With that said, that's the end of the first episode. So for Dave and Doug, we'll see you.
night.
Good night.